Good morning students, we will continue with the 11th standard economics, chapter 8, Indian economy before and after independence. So in this chapter we will discuss about major events that took place before and after independence. We all know India was a colony for a long period of time. Colony in the sense that is the people living in colony cannot take independent decision in utilization of their country's resources. Britain had exploited India more than 2 centuries by its colonial rule. Economic historians divide whole period into 3 phases. First one is a period of merchant capital, a period of industrial capital, and the period of finance capital. First we'll go for the period of merchant capital. So here a period of merchant capital from the year 1757 to 1813. Here the main aim of East India Company was to earn profit. During this period, India has been best hunting ground for the East India Company to develop their industrial capitalization. So next we'll go for the period of industrial capitalization. This is from the year 1813 to 1858. Here, India had become a market for the British textiles. India's raw material were exported to England for low prices and import the finished textiles commodity to India at a high prices. That means, for example, we can say a cotton will be exported to Britain, and that cotton was made into finished goods as a garment or a cloth, and again it was imported to India for a higher prices. Next we will go for the period of finance capital. Here Britain decided to make a massive decision. That is means investment in the field of railways, road, postal and telegrams and irrigation. And also for this the poor Indian taxpayers have been compelled to finance for the construction of railways. Decline of Indian handicrafts. Our Indian handicraft products were famous in the worldwide market. That means the handicraft product like we can say the handmade weaved cotton, silk fabrics, calicons. Calicon in the sense pure cotton silk threads, and the wood carving. But these all were destroyed by a policy which is implemented by the British government called as a tax policy or a tariff policy. Our Indian handicraft could not compete with a mission-made product. The land tenure system in India. Land tenure system in the sense, it means the system of land ownership and management. So that is a question arises, who owns the land, who cultivates the land, who is responsible for paying a land revenue, that is land tax, to the government. On base of all these, the question arises here. So the different types of land tenures are, first one is zamindari system or a landlord tenant system. On base of this system, land or zamindars were owners of the land. They were responsible to pay the land revenue, that is land tax, to the government. They will share the land revenue or revenue collected by them in the total rent of a 10/11th, and then balance whatever it is remaining, that will go to the zamindaris. Next is a Malbari system or a communal system of farming. Here, the ownership of a land was maintained by the collective bodies, that is called as a village people, totally village people will maintain. Then they will be distributed land among the peasants. Peasants in the sense poor agricultural labor who are there in that village, for them it is distributed. Then collected revenue from them, then it will be paid to the government as a tax. This system was extended to Madhya Pradesh and the Gujarat. The Rotwari system or the owner cultivated system. This system was introduced by Tamil Nadu, then it was extended to Assam, Gujarat, Punjab and Madhya Pradesh. Under this system, the ownership and right of use and control of all land were given to the tiller. Tiller in the sense who does the farming or who does the cultivation. Next we'll go for the process of industrial transition and colonial capitalism. So it was classified into two categories. First one is the industrial growth during 19th century and the next industrial progress during the 20th century. First we'll go for the 19th century industrial growth. Here the British usually aim for the profit motive, not for the economic growth in India. There were 36 jute mills, 194 cotton mills, and from the production of coal has been increased over 6 million tons per annual, that is per yearly. Next is the industrial progress during the 20th century. So this is a time where a Swadeshi movement stimulated in India for the industrial process in India and also outbreak of the First World War. In this time, more than 70 cotton mills, 30 jute mills were set up. And also the coal production were double. They started extracting more coal from the Indian resources or Indian mines, we can say. And also the iron and steel industries were laid, and the industry like cotton textile, sugar industry, paper industries and match industries all were set up in India. All these were to protect their industries, that means the British government industries, and they wanted to capture the entire Indian market. So the British rule transformed the Indian economy as a producer of raw material, and they wanted to capture the Indian market for their finished goods. And also they started exploiting the Indian laborers. Next we'll continue with the problem of British rule in India. So the British rule stunned to see the growth of Indian industries, first one. The second one is the Indian agriculture sector become the stagnant and deteriorated, that means the worse it is become. Next, the third one, British rule collapsed the Indian handicraft industries. And the fourth one is a British rule has regime, that means regime in the sense authority to control the many industries called mines, plantation, jute mills, banking and shipping was in the hands and the control of a British rule. And next, the fifth one is many firms were managed by the foreigners. And also their main aim is to make the profit. And further it made to lead or it made for the drain of resources, of natural resources, whatever there in India. Important industrial policy, that is period to the 1991. It was 1991 period, it was a very weak sector industries. So India is Asia's largest economy. The government of India has declared the first industrial policy. It was set up there. It was in the year 6th April 1948. One word later come. The first industrial policy was set up in the year they will ask 6th April 1948. So the main aim of this first industrial policy it was categorized that the industrial sector into 4 categories. First one, the public sector, fully by the government. Second one is a public cum private sector, that is half public and the half is by the government. Next, the third one is fully controlled by the private sector. And the fourth one is private and the cooperative sectors will be there.
Right.
Next point there, the main aim of this industrial policy was to protect the cottage and the small scale industries. And also the central and the state government has a single and monopoly role in the control of railway and roads. And the fourth one is the government encourage foreign capital for the industries, but all the control should remain in the Indian people, that means Indian hands only. Industrial Policy Resolution of 1956. According to this policy, the main aim is to give the dominant role to the public sector, that means the government sector industries. And also the government has issued that fair treatment can be given to the private sectors. And next object of this policy is to the government will support and encourage the cotton and small scale industries. And the third policy or object of this policy is to they wanted to decrease the regional disparities among the states in the terms of in the level of development field of industries and also the development sectors. Green Revolution. Green Revolution refers to adaptation of a technology in agriculture field. Before 1960s, our Indian farmers were using a traditional method of agriculture farming. So that traditional method of agriculture farming has to be replaced by this modern technology. So they introduced this modern technology in the agriculture farming first in the 7 districts. So this modern technology of agriculture was called as a high yielding variety of program, that is HYVP. One word they will ask, high yielding variety of program. That is a high yielding variety of seeds we can say. Achievement of the Green Revolution was started. What they achieved there in India? First one is they increased the production of wheat, rice, java and maize. Kambu solan solrala. Then and they started exporting now. In India has now started exporting food grains to the European countries. And they also increased the production of commercial crops or cash crops. Commercial crops in the sense sugarcane, cotton, jute, oil seeds in the sense groundnut seeds we can say, and also sunflower seeds we can say. And next is to they had this achievement increasing of grains has given the effect of a positive effect in the development of industries. That is a manufacturing of agriculture tools has increases like tractors, engines, pump sets we can say. And also next point is that the Green Revolution has brought a prosperity in the agriculture, that is for the farmers. And also rural area people has increased their standard of living. And also due to the multiple cropping has increased the chemical fertilizers in their farming. So to manufacture that fertilizers, they wanted many laborers to manufacture that fertilizer product. So the demand for labor also increases. Then after that, the cooperative society also started providing loans to the farmers. Next, weakness of Green Revolution. Indian agriculture was still gambling for the monsoon, and also most of the time they're looking for and depend upon the rainfall. According to this revolution, the heavy investment made on the seeds, fertilizers, pesticides and the water. And also it has increased the income gap between the marginal and the small farmers, that is rich farmers and the poor farmers. And also it has increased the gap between the irrigated and rain-fed areas and also the which is not rain-fed areas. The gap has widened, the gap has been increased. And this Green Revolution also increased the unemployment among the agriculture laborers. And also they started using inorganic materials, that is using pesticides, chemicals, all this they started using. So it made the fertility of a soil has been reduced. And also it spoiled the human health. Those are eating that agriculture product which is used by the chemicals, fertilizers. If they eat the health of a human also will be spoiled. Second Green Revolution. So according to this second, already the first Green Revolution has started. Again they started the second Green Revolution. The main aim is to start again the second Green Revolution is to achieve the higher agriculture growth. The main target of this second Green Revolution is to that they wanted to increase the 400 millions of tons of food grains by the year 2020. So according to this revolution, 2006 and 7, they started producing 214 millions of tons of food grains. The main aim of this target is to that 400 millions of tons of food grains has to be produced within or in the year in the 2020. But according to this revolution, the growth of agriculture has been increasing 5% to 6% as increase in next 15 years. A requirement of a green revolution, second green revolution. And here according to this second green revolution, they started introducing a genetically modified seeds, that is to double the production. For example, sugarcane, usually traditional method of sugarcane, it grows up to 2 meters. Means if this genetically modified seeds, that means GM seeds, if they use, means it grow up to 4 meters. To distribute this genetically modified seed, that GM seeds, has been given to the private sectors. They will be given in the hands of the private sector to distribute the seeds, because to buy that seeds the investment has been more, so it was given to the private sector. And the government has played a key role in the management of managing water resources. That means one state to another state, they want to distribute this water, means according to the agriculture monsoon, they have to distribute it. So that they started linking the river to the transfer of surplus water to the deficit area, those which their area they don't have waters. Large scale industries. Large scale industry in the sense, the industry which requires a huge infrastructure, huge manpower, that is the labors. Example, iron and steel industries, textile industries, automobile manufacturing industries, and also IT industry, that is information technology industries, also will come under this large scale industry. Indian government has largely depended upon these large scale industries for the economic growth and also for the generation of a foreign capital, foreign currency. Major large scale industries are in that. First one is the iron and steel industry. Iron and steel industry, first iron and steel industry was established at the place called as a Kulti in West Bengal. Then later, Bengal iron and steel industry was established in the year 1870. Then TISCO, that is Tata Iron and Steel Company, was established in the Jamshedpur in the year 1907. And next, one more industry was established, that is IISCO, that means Indian Iron and Steel Industry. It was established in the place called Burnpura in 1909. That also in the West Bengal. Both TISCO and IISCO are where belong to private sectors. Then one more industry, iron and steel industry, was set up in the Vishveshwaraya Iron and Steel Works at Bhadravati. Next, for all this iron and steel industry should be controlled by one authority, was called as a Steel Authority of India Limited. This the authority was responsible for and to control the iron and steel industry in India. Now, next, India is the 8th largest producer of steel industry, producer of steel in the world. We'll go for the jute industry. It is a very important industry of India to create employment, that is job opportunity in the agriculture field and also in the industrial sector. India ranks number 1 in the raw jute, that means raw jute, and number 2 in export of jute goods in the world. Worldwide, we are exporting in the ranking, we are in the number 2. Industry is the cotton and textile industry. It is the oldest industry of India. This cotton and textile industries account for percentage of a GDP, that is gross domestic product exporting in India. That is 4% of GDP is come from this cotton and textile industry, and also it has a 1/3 of export earning to India. And first modernized cotton cloth mill was established in the year 1880, but it was not successful. After that, the second mill was named Mumbai Spinning and Weaving and Cotton Textile Industry, and it was established in the year 1854 at Mumbai by KGN Debar. Next is the sugar industry. It is the largest industry. It was established major largest industry in India. It is the second largest industry among the agriculture based. That means the industry which belong to the agriculture based. It depends only on the agriculture. India is a larger producer of sugar and also the consumer of sugar in the world. The Maharashtra state contributes the 1/3 of a total sugar output, and the next state is the Uttar Pradesh. Next, industry. Fertilizer industry is the largest producer of nitrogenous fertilizer in the world. India produces this nitrogenous fertilizer for the plant and for the agriculture purpose. Paper industry. It is a paper industry. It is a modernized paper industry was set up in the year 1812 at Serampur in West Bengal. Serampur is a place. It is in the West Bengal. Our Indian industry, that is the paper industry, is ranked among the 15 top global paper industry of the world. Worldly 15th rank we had in the paper industry. Industry. India is the second largest producer of silk in the world. That is the producing of a natural silk. First is China. India produced 16% of silk to the world. India is the only country which producing 5 commercial variety of silk. That is a mulberry silk, a tropical tushar, an oak tushar, and eri and muga. These are the 5 variety of commercial silk a producer of India. Petroleum and natural gas. The first oil well was dug in Digboy in the Assam. To look after all this petroleum and natural gas, a new commission was set up that is called as the ONGC. That means Oil Natural Gas Commission. One wordly they will expand. ONGC means Oil and Natural Gas Commission. This commission was established in the year 1956 at Dharampur in Uttarakhand.